that man red?
When did he first say ugh?
Why did he ask you how?
Enlighten me, Disney. I'd love to know what you think about the red man being red. Tell me something new. And while you're at it, tell me what makes the Jewish men peddlers and the black crows black. We're gonna have ourselves a real zippity-doo-dad. When it comes to Disney, there's no denying they got great musical numbers. We think about all the great musical songs. There's Part of Your World, The Circle of Life, A Whole New World. For some reason, all focusing on worlds for some reason. Maybe they just wanted to tie it into their Epcot attraction. But we can't say they all worked, and that's what this countdown is for. We're going to be looking at the worst musical numbers in Disney animated movies. When coming up with this list, I wanted to consider the animated films that focus on musical numbers. You got a lot of the Disney animated films like Tarzan, which has musical numbers in them, but not necessarily musical numbers in a sense that they play a role specifically, or even like the characters are singing the songs. They're just there to promote, I guess, new music by Elton John or Phil Collins. Good music for sure, but to me it doesn't really reflect the traditional musical numbers in a sense of what Disney's all about. Let's not hesitate, let's just get right into it. Hunchback of Notre Dame came in the mid-90s, when at that time animated films were taking more risks. I talked about that more in my Prince of Egypt review. I guess with the success of Lion King, there were more animated films that wanted to incorporate sharper language,
Call me crazy, but I have a thing about drinking from the anus of another creature.
more violence, and of course just generally darker themes. That's where we got Hunchback of Notre Dame, an adaptation of Victor Hugo's work, which also around this time we had Les Mis being very popular on Broadway, so I guess it only made sense to have another Victor Hugo work, one that has been featured in pop culture before, which then brings us to its audience. After the movie was screened, you had two types of people. One half of the people saying it was risky for Disney to do this, bold and brash, while the other half of people saying that it should have stuck to the Disney formula, or even when they were trying to stick to the Disney formula, it should have ended up in the trash. Me personally, I'm split on it. I see the positives and I see the negatives. I do think they took a lot of good risks, specifically with some of their characters like Judge Frollo, while on the other hand, things like the gargoyles, which I'll be talking about right now, really bring the film back. And in our number 5 spot, we have a song that comes to us at a crucial moment in the film where France is under fire, Judge Frollo's out on a purge of heretics, specifically the gypsies, and what goes on? The gargoyles are singing a song to Quasimodo, our hero, about getting the girl. Yeah, just really fits the tone. It's so funny because as the song starts, you see the Jason Alexander gargoyle taking a sausage, puts it outside as if to say, yeah, the world's on fire, but hey, we're still having a good time. And the funny thing about that is that throughout the whole song, there's never really that distinction ever brought up again. It could have been funny if they mentioned the irony of the world being on fire while they're there having a good old time and maybe focusing on the positives of life, sort of like in the song Always Look on the Bright Side of Life by Life of Brian. But that's not the case here. You don't really get that sense of irony or subtlety that, for the most part, is throughout the whole film. With Judge Frollo, he's out hunting all the gypsies. Esmeralda, she's in hiding. Phoebus, the character who also has the relation with Esmeralda, he's wounded, and he's being treated by Esmeralda. What we don't know at this point is that Quasimodo has feelings for Esmeralda, as is reflected with this song with the gargoyles, who we don't establish as being real or figments of his imagination, which I'll talk about in a little bit. And they go ahead and sing a song saying that, you know what, you're a good guy, you're gonna get the girl by this. And in some ways, it just feels really weird when you find out afterwards that, no, he doesn't get the girl. So all that song was for no reason. You didn't need it. And it actually makes you feel, as an audience member, more confused because in some ways you would like to see Esmeralda get with Quasimodo. Granted, as an adult, you kind of appreciate Phoebus and Esmeralda, but this whole time, it's a Disney movie. You kind of expect the Beast to get Belle by the end of this. Granted that the filmmakers directed that movie, you figured that's how things would turn out. But that's not the case here, and it only makes you feel more confused. Oh, on top of the fact that with the Gargoyles song, I put it lower on the list because at the end of the day, we don't know if they're real. And by the end of the song, we actually see everything go back to normal versus this big Aladdin type musical number that creates some ambiguity as to whether or not they're alive or not. Granted, you could also argue that there were scenes they blatantly show them being alive, but that's why I put it a little bit lower on this list. But at the end of the day, it just reflects the confusing nature of this movie. So not only do we have a confusing musical number that has a confusing tone that doesn't mix with this confusing movie, it ends up in a confusing outcome. Overall, it's just, well, I guess confusing is just redundant, but what else am I gonna say here? I'm just confused! Number 4 comes to us to a movie that actually has some of the best musical numbers, but in some ways, all the musical numbers in this reflect how bad this number is. That movie, Alice in Wonderland. What can I say about it? Everybody talks about Alice in Wonderland being Disney's finest, trippiest animated movie. It still is even today. That remake got nothing on it. You think about the Unbirthday song, the Queen of Hearts musical montage. But then you come to the songs at the beginning of the film, like the one we're talking about right now, In a World of My Own, which, again, going back to that whole world mentality, what's up with Disney with that? So I guess it makes sense, though, in retrospect, to have this song. It's about introducing Alice and showing that she wants to be exposed to a world that's not like her own. She's bored, she wants to go to sleep, and in her daydream, she's thinking about this song, Enter the White Rabbit, and that's the end of the song. But the thing is that listening to this song, it's just so boring and laid back. And granted, that could be the idea behind it because she's supposed to be going to bed, but you as the audience member feel like you're dipping out. And I always remember, even to this day, even as I was a kid and even now, always fast forwarding this song. And the funny thing about that is that even though I fast forward through this song, I feel like I don't lose anything. All you really need to know is that Alice ends up in Wonderland. Maybe there were like more ambiguous connections in this song to it being the real world versus the Wonderland world, whereas you don't know if she's falling asleep to their actually falling asleep would actually make it interesting, but we don't really see that. We just see a girl sounding bored, and frankly, I love the voice actress, Catherine Beaumont. She's like one of the best voice actresses, in Disney Pantheon everything. Like, she just sounds bored, and I feel bored, and that's really all I gotta say about it. Boring, laid back, horrible song. Next one. So with number 3, let's just put this out in the air. Disney has had their share of racism. Crows from Dumbo, Siamese twins, do I really need to go through the list? And of course, all those characters have got their songs. And there's no apparent song that covers the racism, the cringe, and just the overall bad nature of the song, and not really helping the plot along either, than with What Makes the Red Man Red. Most of the songs in this list I have a hard time remembering the titles, but this one just sticks out to you, right? So with Peter Pan, you have the scene where Peter saves Tiger Lily from Captain Hook. So Tiger Lily's father, the chief, invites them back to the village where they can enlighten them about their culture. So that's gonna be fun. 1950s Disney telling us what makes the red man red. I can imagine what amazing territory they're gonna go into. And frankly, it is just as awkward as it sounds. And I think with a lot of the Disney characters that are racist caricatures, painted to be something more like cartoon characters in a medium that granted are cartoon characters, but push them further back and exaggerate more of those cartoony features, only feels more painful. And it doesn't really help that with the Native American characters, as we discover with this scene, they're not very helpful. They're played out to be idiots, and you actually kind of hate them by the end of the scene. They're invited back to the village, and this whole time they're singing about how man, woman, man is in top, woman at bottom. We are red because we blush at woman, ha ha ha. And then the whole time, Wendy sees Peter getting with Tiger Lily. That's making her feel weird, and then you got this big blob of a woman telling her to go get firewood. And you're like, screw you, B, I'm out of here. Because this whole time we're thinking, Peter, Wendy, that's where it should be, not Tiger Lily's. No offense. Tiger Lily could be a great character, never read the books, maybe she was a better character. Here, not apparent. Granted, I'm not defending the crows in Dumbo, but you can argue that the characters help Dumbo and actually become sort of like heroes to the character. But they're just flat out racist portrayal of Jim Crow type era stuff, and it's just wrong. Here, you got the racist stuff, but you don't have anything helpful to the characters, so you really ask yourself, I don't like these characters. I just don't like them. And that's really just the whole vibe I get out of the song, which in itself is just very repetitive. The animation, you can argue, tries to be cool and funky, but that's not even that cool either when you're focusing back on all this cringe. But at the end of the day, the song should be called What Makes Me Red and not What Makes the Red Man Red. So in some ways we touch up on sexism with What Makes the Red Man Red. Oh boy, let's go into that bongo song where you slap girls. I said it. There's a song about slapping women in a Disney animated movie. But it's okay, you can also slap the man so it's consensual. So before we go into the song, let's talk about its movie, Fun and Fancy Free. So when I first heard about this film, like most people, I didn't realize it was an older film. I didn't realize it was one of those older movies made during the 1940s when Disney had to cut back on cost for the war effort at the time, which resulted in them making a lot of shorts, put together in anthology films, and that brings us to Fun and Fancy Free. And when I first saw this movie as a kid, I just thought it was a new version of Mickey and the Beanstalk, so I was kind of excited to see it. The box just focused on Mickey and the Beanstalk, and for some reason, Jiminy Cricket was on the top. So you were like, yo, this looks pretty cool. I didn't realize until I brought it back home that there was another short to the movie, and it's kind of lame. So with the short, we focus on Bongo the Bear, who's a circus bear. He gets out of the circus, he's in the wild, and he falls in love with a girl. Sounds simple enough, you got your simple 1940s era Madagascar stuff, but then it comes to a point where he wants to get with the girl, and we discover the rules of the bears of the wilderness. Her evil jock boyfriend comes around, and he's like, yo, this my woman. And then he slaps her, and then she slaps him back. And then we discover through a song that they all slap each other for affection. Weird, right? I know it's probably played up to be a joke and whatnot, but overall when you're singing this song about what makes a woman slap each other for affection, you're wondering, that could be sending some mixed messages. And for me as a kid, it was sending some mixed messages, that's for sure. The song itself, it's very boring. The melody doesn't really do anything interesting out of something you would listen to in Country Bear Hall and Disney World. It just feels lazy, boring, and just sends an overall bad message. It makes me feel bad. When you listen to the song, it's time's up for Bongo. So here it is, guys, the #1 worst song in an animated Disney movie. Let's just say it comes from one of their worst movies. Can you just take a guess as to what that movie is? Just take a guess as to what that movie could be. I'll give you a second. Think about it. Post it as soon as you think about it, too. Okay, let's say it together. Home on the Range. Not only does this movie just represent the worst of Disney at the time, you can even argue that it led to 2D animation's death. There are other videos that I've made about talking about what led to Disney's death of 2D animation, but you can also argue that Home on the Range didn't really help. It's just a lazy movie starring Roseanne Barr trying to get revenge on a cow herder, with visuals that aren't really that interesting, characters that have been done before, and like I said, just an overall script of stupidity that you can't blame Prozac for, Roseanne. You just can't blame Prozac for. But I'd say of all the dumb songs and all the dumbness of this movie, the one thing that cultivates to being the dumbest thing, and not just dumb, but overall boring and horrible to listen to, is the villain song. Yes, I said it. The villain song is the worst part to this movie, and given that Disney movies have like some of the best villain songs of all time, so not only is it the worst there, it's also the worst villain song. You're setting the bar pretty low. The Roseanne bar pretty low. So what's it all about? So we find out about the villain, Alameda Slim. He is a cow wrestler, and he finds a way to get rid of all the cattle, but we don't know how. And he's painted to be like this mysterious dark figure. You don't know much about him. And then Roseanne Barr, she's like, I'm gonna go get some revenge on this guy. And it comes to the point where she sees him. She's like, yeah, I'm gonna go get him. But then you find out what his secret weapon is. And you know what his secret weapon is? It's yodeling.
The sweetest way of rustling yet devised.
I'm not kidding you. It's yodeling. And it's weird. The first time I heard it, I was just like, this is happening. This is really, really happening. There's a villain who uses yodeling as a way to hypnotize cows into doing his bidding. It's just, okay, this exists. And not only that, the song is just repetitive and boring. And it's just the same stuff over and over again. Yodel, edel, idle, odel, oodle. Which happens to be the title of the song, by the way. The oodle part of it really emphasizes the part that you hate about this song. Over and over again. Yodel, edel, idle, odel, oodle, yodel, edel, idle, oodle, yodel, edel, idle, odel. I can't stand it. I really can't. I hate it. The more I think about this song, the more I get an aneurysm. You know what? So, there it is. There's the song. If you want to listen to it, by all means. It kind of stinks though that this is an Alan Menken number. And yeah, granted, with Alan Menken's numbers, it is hit or miss nowadays. Sometimes you get tangled, sometimes you get yodel, edel, idle, odel, odel. So those are my songs. I'm sure there are worse ones that I didn't include. Comment below, let me know what you think the worst Disney animated song is and what you think about this general list in general. Comment below, let me know what you think. I'm Joey.T.Cartoon.P and thanks for watching this countdown on the Cartoon Palooza.